Hello there.
Hello.
It strikes me that because of various events and various happenings, we did not get a chance to put up a video last week or
Mhm.
this week giving an overview of the number twos that we've been reading, which I think we said we were going to be doing. Not doing full reviews, but still just taking a little look at the ones that we picked up.
Mhm.
Now, I noticed that we didn't get a chance to do that this week because of various Comic-Cons in Arkham Cities and other related thingies.
Mhm.
So perhaps we should get to doing that now.
Yeah.
Just taking a look at, I guess, for this video, last
Week 2
week number 2
of this
of
month. Yeah.
October,
Mhm.
whatever date that might have been.
So a lot of stuff came out. We
Yeah.
didn't read all the comics.
We didn't read everything. I mean, most of the ones that we got,
Yeah, we
that we actually read the number ones of, we did continue with. I mean,
Uh-huh.
there were a few that we didn't. Frankenstein, Agent of Shade.
Uh,
I know I didn't read Mr. Terrific, but you did.
Mr. Terrific. Just saying right now. We're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna go long on it. So I'm just gonna say. I'm not gonna continue reading it. Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about Mr. Terrific first.
Okay.
So, Mr. Terrific, number 1, I felt, didn't really have very much, I found it was very, I don't know, I think wordy, sciencey, but not particularly doing a good job of carrying the plot forward. I guess
That's
it's kind of,
number 2.
it felt kind of dull to me,
Uh-huh.
because I think they advertised or promoted that in number 2 we're being introduced to a new villain character.
Yeah,
how does
it's
that
not that-
come out?
It just wasn't interesting.
Mhm.
But what really endeared me to Mr. Terrific number 1 was that I thought the character was interesting and cool.
Because he made one reference to Doctor Who. Is
Yeah,
that right?
so I'm a bit shallow. But this is just the plot went a bit forward, but not enough to really keep me engaged. There wasn't as much character development really. I just like that. I was just really bored by, and I don't think I'll be picking it up again.
So are you saying it set up the story further, but didn't set it up in a way that made it particularly engaging?
Yeah, it was just kind of set up a boring story, and I don't really care about anything anymore.
Now, is this a boring story because you personally aren't interested, or is it a boring story because you think it's poorly told or poorly established?
Probably a bit of both. Yeah.
So do you think that you're definitely... Okay, if for example, I bought Mr. Terrific number 3, would you read it if I had it and just not pay for it? Or would you just
I'd read it.
be
Yeah.
so disinterested?
I'd read it, but I wouldn't buy it myself.
Yeah.
And if I did like it, I'd buy number 4. But I just don't care enough, so I don't think I would. I'd read it just because it's there to read. Really.
Yeah. See, me, for example, you bought Mr. Terrific number 2. I didn't even read it because that's how little I found Mr. Terrific to really be engaging. Not that number 1 was badly written, but I don't think it did much to really carry you into the next issue.
And that's how I feel about number 2. Yeah.
Interesting. And you say that, because I know number 1 was pretty heavy on character development, giving us a lot of backstory and that sort of thing, but you say that that's not really continued?
That's not really continued. It's mostly like this is where they introduce the plot, but it's not really engaging the plot. It's just kind of bleh.
Does it continue the themes and plot threads that were established in number 1, or does it introduce a lot of new things?
No, it continues the threats. We get a little more insight on how Mr. Terrific, how his powers work, and how it all has to do with these little balls that he created that are like linked to his something or whatever. But I just don't think it's interesting. It just wasn't something.
All right, so I guess I also won't be reading that. What else have we read 2 weeks ago? I know I actually one of the ones that I read more recently was Batwoman.
Yeah, Batwoman.
There were a lot of bats in last week and this week.
Yeah.
We might as well get into the bats now. Batwoman. What did you think of that one? No.
Well, it was a lot. I think it was a lot less artsy. I think it was more.
I actually found that it was just as artsy.
Maybe I'm just more used to it now.
Yeah,
It was less. I found it less shocking, I guess, the art. Like, it was just more, I'm used to this now.
Yeah, it is the kind of thing that you get used to, but there will be things like, for example, there's one page that's just a bat symbol, and every portion of the bat symbol is divided into a panel, and it's things like that. There was one in the previous one, only a different kind of logo. I think that artistically, it's kind of... I find it annoying on that level. I know I don't normally talk about art first. I normally just leave that as not an afterthought, but something that's kind of less important. But here, it's really kind of messing with me because it seems to shift a lot from page to page, panel to panel. Well, not panel to panel, but between pages. So it seems like there's just... It's different. It does have that kind of I think we talked about it a lot in our Batwoman #1 review. It has that really sort of avant-garde quality to it, but I don't think that it's something consistent enough that it's really effective at evoking something strongly associated with the comic itself. Why don't you talk while I find the copy of Batwoman so I could actually demonstrate?
Batwoman #1 or 2?
#2. Why don't you talk about what you thought of it?
Do you have a copy of it?
I have your copy of it. So
I put it in with my bag. I'll get it. You talk.
I will, during this period, talk about how the story progresses. One of the most interesting things, I think, is the continuation of Agent Scully, who is not called Agent Scully, but she essentially is Agent Scully.
Here it is.
She's from the government, the Department of Extranormal Operations, or something like that, which is essentially the X-Files of the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
But she's actually trying to figure out who Batwoman is. And we know she works for Black Mask. We don't know much about her. I think the idea of it now, there's someone who's after Batwoman's identity. It's the kind of plot that we see all the time that in these sorts of things, but it's still interesting. Especially since I think that we're focusing a lot less on the child murderer plot of the story, which was introduced in #1, which I found really interesting. But we're exploring more Batwoman's relationship as a civilian with this police officer who she's now going out with, as well as her relationship with her as Batwoman. And we have this kind of, I want to say a love triangle, because I feel like there are 3 characters, Kate Kane, Batwoman, and this detective. I think is it Detective Sawyer?
I just like calling her Scully, like you.
No, the police detective.
That she's going out with?
Yes.
Let me check.
I believe it's Detective Sawyer. So we have a very interesting thing, because the police detective, she's just, no.
I like this page a lot.
Just let me finish the sentence. That she's kind of like, I'm going to go after Batwoman because she's interfering in my case. This is mine, and I'm after her. But she doesn't know the
Is this
conflict.
supposed to? That's not really.
No, these are just thoughts. Yeah. But so there's some interesting tension there. Firebird, or Plebe as she is now, doesn't really appear much.
Yeah, Detective Sawyer.
Yeah, so a lot of the plot threads that were introduced in #1, they get extended a little bit, touched on, but it's really exploring, I think, more the relationships between characters, which is good. I think it's giving us a firm foundation for the rest of the story. At the same time, I'm worrying that there are a lot of different plot threads that are being kind of introduced all at the same time, so I have to wonder how it's going to play out. It's something that could be handled well and something that could be handled poorly, but I definitely... I think it's a bit less exciting than #1, but it's definitely doing a good job sustaining the story and giving us more background. Oh, and we had like a giant metahuman battle that we know about vaguely. So again, hard to see.
What happens is that we see the detectives kind of find out what's going on. Have you ever watched like an episode of like CSI or NCIS or whatever?
Or House.
Or House, you'll like they go through the crime scenes like this person was over there, and then they show like a memory of this like person, boosh, and they go over, and he would start over here and he fell that way, so you see the da-da-da-da. Yeah, so that's kind of what we get in this issue.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of hard to see how everything ties together, so there's a mystery to it. Oh,
also,
and also, another plot thread, Batman appeared at the end of the other one, he's trying to get Batwoman to join Batman Incorporated. So there's a lot going on in these comics.
I do like how they make Batman's design here less armored.
Yeah, and here's that page I was talking about.
Like, Batman just looks like he's wearing kind of like a loose... Not loose, but like a light material here.
Yeah. It's also
he looks like... No, you know what this is?
He looks like Adam West.
Yeah, this is Adam West's costume as Batman.
He's got a very square looking costume. So, but overall, I think in terms of art, the thing is that my problem is... I don't have a problem necessarily with any of the appearances of the art, just that it changes so much from page to page. For example, can I compare these two?
And then the one over here?
Yeah, so I will... Just to demonstrate the kinds of variation that we have. We have here... I mean, again,
this looks kind of like it's going to be the standard art, I guess.
It's hard to tell, because here we have this. It's got much more texture, kind of that three-dimensional look to it, much less cartoonish.
Kind of rubbery on the costume.
Definitely kind of rubbery, and we've got, again, the color palette. It's all black and red, Batwoman's colors. It works. I think it does a very good job. Then we look at a fight scene earlier, and we have something...
Pop-arty.
Something pop-arty, something right out of a comic from 40, 50 years ago. And, I mean...
Like, I expect to see bam, pow.
Yeah, with much, a completely different style and color palette. We've got very cartoonish. Not that that's bad. I mean, it's also a good art style. It's all well drawn. But it's just, and then we'll go to other pages, and we'll have something else that's completely different. And this here...
I do like the variation.
This here, the date scene.
It is a bit, I know what you're getting at, yeah. Also, apparently, just looking at the cover, Batwoman can't swim.
My problem isn't that it varies, because I think variation's okay. I mean, I just think that I don't know if there's a purpose to the variation, and if there is no purpose and it doesn't really help tell the story, which is the sense that I'm getting, then I don't think it's really necessary, and I think it's kind of distracting. Then again, maybe if I look deeper, I could find that every tone conveys a certain theme. Who knows?
Well,
I didn't really get that sense.
It's no Serious House.
Please don't mention that right now. There are so many things that I could say on that note. I will save that for if we ever review that specifically.
So, going on. We
started on Bat. Why don't we go to Batgirl?
How about
there.
Batwing?
We talked about that already. That was the week before.
I was?
Yeah.
Oh, and you just didn't get to read it. Oh, that's right. We did talk about it. We find out who Cole is.
Mm-hmm.
Batgirl.
Batgirl. Now, what are your thoughts on this story? We had a very cliffhanger-type ending on issue number 1. What happened to Batgirl? She choked, someone got shot, and someone's trying to kill her.
And now Batgirl is trying to find out who exactly Mirror is.
Yes, this villain's name is Mirror. Not Mirror Master, but Mirror. Although, he wears a mirror and he has a mirror in his cape, so I have to think of him as kind of a... I don't know. Probably going to be a better character.
Well, I think he's shaping up to be one of the more interesting villains so far in the reboot.
One thing that surprises me, we are generally getting a lot of new villains. Like, I mean, rather than...
We have Dollmaker. Dollmaker, that's his name?
Yes,
we have Dollmaker, Mirror, we have Nobody.
Who's Nobody?
We have, I think Nobody is the organization from Teen Titans. Wait, then who's the guy? Nowhere. Okay, so Nobody is the guy from Batman and Robin. There we go.
Yeah, no, but we've got all sorts of other things. We've got Massacre from Batwing. That's an entirely new series, though. But someone from Hawkman, they mentioned the character's name. We haven't even heard it officially in comic yet. What is it? I want to say Mephistopheles, but I know that's wrong.
It's close to that.
Yeah. But no, it seems that for every series, the Crazy Order of the Owls and Batman, it seems to me that...
Which we'll get to.
Yeah, it seems to me that in every series we're starting off with a new enemy, something different, something new. It's like, it's not going to be, oh, the enemy in this series is the Joker. Not that the Joker won't make an appearance, so it's kind of...
Well, the Joker has made an appearance in Detective.
That's what I'm saying. He has made an appearance, but not as a main focus. Now, in terms of Batgirl, this is very much less about Barbara Gordon getting back into the role of Batman as Batgirl number 1 is. Did I just say getting into the role of Batman?
Yeah.
Getting into the role of Batgirl as Batgirl number 1 was, and much more about her actually fighting crime.
Yeah.
Specifically...
And we get to see her use of, I guess, the skills that she learned as Oracle.
Or I think it's implied that she developed as Oracle.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of implied that she already had them.
But we see her use them.
The detective end of her, because I think we sometimes...
forget that the Bat family are detectives.
Or we tend to associate Batgirl much more with Robin or a sidekick type character, and not appreciate her skills as a detective in her own right. But she definitely spends this entire issue essentially
trying to find out who Mirror is.
Yeah, fighting. There's the entire first half of it is essentially a fight that continues. That continues exactly where number 1 left off, and then afterward trying to get to the bottom of this and find out exactly what's going on, while we also see a little bit more of the development of the character ties that we started off with her and her roommate, her and her therapist, physical therapist, so it's not unethical. She's going out with her physical therapist now, and she's gotten the use of her legs back. One thing that I do really like about this, that I have to say, just before I finish talking about it, is that I think in the first issue it might seem a bit of a cheat that they don't actually explain how she got the use of her legs back, that it's like, oh, it was a miracle, and then we're not going to talk about it anymore. It seems kind of almost like a Deus Ex Machina type of device. But in this, the idea of it being a miracle and this thing just happening to her is actually a part of the story. That it's something that bothers her. It's something that may have to do with why this mirror villain is going after her. And again, I think...
Lazarus Pit.
No.
I
think that with these types of books, especially considering the author, the way that she writes villains is interesting. They're always both completely horrible people and also generally interesting and kind of different. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I'm not going to say too much about the character because a lot of that is kind of revealed at the end, but I would say that it's definitely continuing strongly from Batgirl #1. I mean, I would say it's on the same level, and yeah, maybe slowing down a little bit, but I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's dragging at all. So I'm definitely going to be reading #3.
Me too. And to talk about the art a little bit, I like how even on the cover you can see that she looks a lot less armored. Like, and then you can see in a few panels. Let me try and bring them up. Give me a second. Here. Like, it definitely looks like she's able to move in this sort of material more.
Yeah, as opposed to #1, which had more of a heavily armored look to it, kind of a Kevlar type thing going on.
Yeah.
Now, shall we talk about Deathstroke?
Do I have that? I don't have that one on me. Yeah, let's talk about Deathstroke.
Deathstroke.
Carpocalypse.
It's called Carpocalypse. And what is the plot of Deathstroke #2? I can tell you the plot of Deathstroke #2. Deathstroke goes to a restaurant, talks to some guy for 2 pages, and then kills everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Deathstroke running around, killing everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of didn't mind Deathstroke #1 having this really
crazy, awesome,
senseless killing attitude to it, like just let's go around and kill stuff, because #1, he was on a mission, and #2, they were kind of cute and funny about it. Deathstroke #2, I find, is taking itself almost too seriously. Not too seriously, but it seems like it's just taking itself at face value. Like, let's just have him going around killing each other, killing everyone, and that's enough to make an interesting and sustain this comic for however many issues it's going to be. This is going to be a long-running series. I mean, this isn't even a mini-series. It's actually a Deathstroke series. So I didn't mind giving it a chance for issue #1, but if this is what the bulk of the comic is actually going to be, just Deathstroke trying to be cool, then that bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts?
I enjoy crazy awesome killing people, like that sort of stuff.
But do you think this really?
But it is shallow. It is incredibly shallow. And if they can't find a way to actually make a story of it, I don't know how long it will be until the novelty just wears off.
That's definitely what I think. It's not that it can't work. It's just that it's in danger of getting really boring really fast. I'm not going to say that it's completely boring right now. There is further plot development on who sent Deathstroke on the mission to kill him or something.
Analogy.
Yeah.
If I'm going to make an analogy, it's like right now the comic is button mashing. And that, it's fun to press the button over and over again, and if you're in like a fighting game, just see people explode into, red mist. But eventually it gets boring because you're pressing one button over and over again.
So essentially what we're saying is the comic needs to learn how to Hadoken, and if it doesn't, then
it's going to lose.
Yeah, there's no way that it's going to be able to play on a competitive level.
Exactly.
And I think that pretty much sums up Deathstroke. Shall we talk about... There are a few others from that week. I would say...
Demon Knights?
Demon Knights.
Demon Knights!
Going on to something that perhaps takes a few of the qualities of Deathstroke, but pulls them off much more effectively.
Yeah.
Demon Knights, I think we said when we looked at #1, was just this very fun sort of sword and sorcery universe that we were playing around in. I think that everything that it starts setting up in #1, it really carries forward into #2 and just makes it even stronger. They're going all out. They're not restraining themselves.
And they're being, I don't want to say historically accurate, but they're making a lot of...
historical jokes.
Yeah, historical in-jokes.
And there are a few I want to mention, but I just want to say, overall, I think
it's smart, it's funny, it has a lot going for it right now.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not something that you take very seriously. It's one of the much more lighthearted comics, but it's lighthearted in a way that is incredibly enjoyable. I mean, you've just got Vandal Savage running around eating dragons. Oh, they don't make them like this anymore.
He just takes a dragon's neck and chomps down on it.
While it's alive.
While it's alive, yes.
I love the idea of taking a villain like Vandal Savage, putting him in his own time period.
Mm-hmm.
That's...
Well, still not his own time period, but putting him in a time period.
Well, it's a time period he's comfortable in.
Yeah.
But overall, I think visually, first off, I think the comics that we've been talking about are very much both Deathstroke and Demon Knights are very much the same as their predecessors as the first issues. And overall...
And Demon Knights really does have that whole Renaissance feel going for it.
I think Middle Ages.
Middle Age.
Not Renaissance.
Whatever.
But
well, like Renaissance Fair. Why do they call them Renaissance Fairs if they take place?
you know, it's interesting. I know someone who likes this. I actually always refer to them, especially when I'm talking to her, as historical inaccuracy festival. That's what I call them.
Like, why not medieval fairs or something?
I don't know. It's silly.
Yeah.
Because Renaissance is getting into like Shakespearean times. But then again, maybe because Shakespeare wrote about the Middle Ages sometimes. It's confusing. Anyway. Overall, I think also the story of Mordru trying to attack this village and these demon knights.
This very inconspicuous village.
Yes, and them having to come together to fight off the attackers. What does that remind me of? It's the Magnificent Seven!
But weren't they cowboys or something?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven. It's these... Demon Knights is just a comic book version of the Magnificent Seven, or Seven Samurai. Of course! That's why it's so good!
Ah!
No, that's...
I haven't seen those movies.
Yeah, well, it's alright.
I know the theme
You
of
know the theme, you know the
Yeah.
story. That's the theme music, or the theme...
of Magnificent Seven.
It's the Magnificent Seven. It's a Western adaptation of a classic Japanese movie called Seven Samurai. It's pretty much the same story as Demon Knights,
cool.
only with alternatingly samurai and cowboys. And
demons, wizards.
the interesting thing is, I think there are 7 of them.
Yeah!
So it's that we've gotten to the bottom of it. That is why Demon Knights is so good. It's the Magnificent Seven in comics, and I am completely okay with that. Just the same way, just the same way that Suicide Squad is the Dirty Dozen. But we'll get to that in a second.
But and we see all the characters that were introduced in issue 1. Now we get to see what they do and how they behave in battle, and how they behave with each other.
And there are a few little touches that I like. For example, there's one person who they need to find a way to correspond with someone else. So this one person, he has pigeons, homing pigeons that he uses, and he's like, I use these to send my moves to so-and-so when I play this obscure Indian board game with him. And he's clearly talking about chess, which at that time would not have been well known to people, so we call it
this guy is
obscure Indian board game.
And this guy is, like, from the Middle East. Well, around that. He's what's his name?
It was a different character.
Oh.
Al-Jabbar, I love because this character, he has all of this futuristic technology because he comes from, like, the center of civilization. Because it's odd, because he comes from the Middle East, but he's not an Arab. I think he's a Moor, but there were Arab Moors. So anyway, I'm not as good on my history as I should be. So he's got a futuristic special device called a telescope, and he's using it. It allows me to see farther. But you've also got all this racism.
Yeah.
It's shaping up to be a really good story, and I really like the way
Funny,
it's going.
fun, it's smart. It's a smart comic.
And it's exciting.
And yeah, a lot of stuff happens. It is really cool.
So I would.
It's one of my favorite of the reboot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit off center from what we're what we're used to, but I like it.
It works.
Definitely. So let's move on to one that I just mentioned, Suicide Squad.
Yes. Okay. Let's do that one.
I don't think I'm spoiling anything because it shows up in the first 2 pages. Where I go from saying yes, Suicide Squad just goes to a football stadium and fights a bunch of zombies.
Yeah.
What?
And are we told why?
Yeah, because there's a thing that's turning them into zombies.
Oh yeah, they have to recover Patient Zero's baby or something.
Yeah. Seriously. Oh, my. Anyway, things that I liked about it. Deadshot. Alright, I have to admit, Deadshot is one of my favorite characters. He's my profile picture on Facebook. He knows this is true. But overall, Deadshot, the character, is well done, except there is one scene where he goes, you know, I normally work alone. Deadshot, you do not work alone. When you work alone, no one pays attention to you. You are a team player. You're not a very nice guy, but you're a team player.
He works alone in Arkham City.
That is true, but this is not Arkham City.
True.
Anyway, I guess as far as what I was interested in seeing is how they end up working together as a team. I mean, I guess there's an interesting dynamic there, which I think is one of the Suicide Squad's strengths, just in concept, taking a bunch of different villain-type characters who all have kind of conflicting personalities and seeing how they work together. That is pulled off well, I guess, but I think the story is just so silly.
Yeah.
Silly and unoriginal and unimaginative that I don't think it's really giving much of a chance for these traits to shine. I mean...
I agree. I like the characters and the parts we see of them interacting with each other. Like if they're not fighting zombies, like just the parts we see talking about how they're going to go along the mission. One person says, I think it's El Diablo. He's like, he doesn't want to kill anybody. And then Deadshot's like, oh, we just have to do the mission. And so I like seeing the interaction, but a lot of it gets overshadowed by just how lame the story is.
Yeah, and also, it's not even like they're interesting zombies. Not that I love zombies or anything, but I think...
But you can make zombies interesting.
I think the idea of zombies can be well done. I think that if you're doing a Dirty Dozen type storyline, like, let's get a group of the world's greatest super criminals to work together as a team to pull off, like, the super impossible mission that we can't send, like the suicide mission that we can't send our normal guys on, like the Special Black Ops team. I think that's great. I don't think those are the kinds of characters who you put into a zombie movie or a zombie comic.
Would you say that this is less Dirty Dozen and more Ocean's 12?
I haven't seen Ocean's 12. I've seen Ocean's 11. I haven't seen Ocean's 12.
Well, Ocean's 11 then.
Well, Ocean's 11... No, the thing is that I like Ocean's 11. That's a caper movie. I like caper movies, and I think that, much like Task Force X, the episode of the Justice League Unlimited TV show that had the Suicide Squad in it, I think that can be well done if you have them doing a caper. Mm-hmm. But this isn't a heist. This isn't a caper. This is just a...
Fighting zombies.
This is just a zombie battle royal.
Yeah.
It's not even a survival horror type thing. Like,
because they have the zombies aren't really threatening.
Yeah, it's just kill all the zombies. Mm-hmm. It's boring. And I have to say, I mean, I'm now wondering, I think the zombie idea was done more well in a comic that doesn't even have zombies in it, I, Vampire. Mm-hmm. The vampire zombie apocalypse. That I don't mind. That I think is interesting. That I think if they had zombies in it, I wouldn't mind. This, on the other hand, I think is kind of a waste of possibilities. And I will admit, I am probably going to read number 3, but I'm also not expecting very much.
But I think the characters are strong, it's just that the story is...
Yeah, I mean, it's the Secret Six. Not the Secret Six, why do I keep saying that? It's the Suicide Squad.
They're wasting good characters.
Yeah, and these characters, I was surprised because I thought that the team dynamic wouldn't work so well with the characters that they're using, but it does. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to put it down on that level. I think that in terms of character interaction, which is very important for these kinds of stories, they're doing a really good job with that. Mm-hmm. I just think that they actually need something to interact over. Also, one final note, I think they're playing it a little bit too safe. Because when you have a story about a team of supervillains who get turned into this Black Ops Force unit, you have to kind of reconcile the fact that, 1, they're villains who are like murderers and killers, and 2, that they're working for the government, and 3, that they need to do things that are perhaps unethical to some, or even possibly to them, and see how that works. There is no ethical question
about
in killing zombies, so you're taking an element of the story that could work, especially with these characters, that's been set up in number 1, that the zombies probably won't be continuing too far down the line, so I'll see where it goes, but I did find it pretty disappointing. Is there anything else from last week that we need to look at? Oh, Resurrection Man. That was interesting. I think the real question for Resurrection Man, number 2, is do you like the body doubles? Because they are much of the story. I think they're even on the cover, just the body doubles.
Well, and then you have Resurrection Man going or something like that.
Yeah, the plot of number 2 is pretty simple. It's carrying the story. I think it slows down the pace a lot, but it becomes Resurrection Man is trying to find out more about his past, and the body doubles, these 2 sexy ladies, are trying to kill him.
But they know he'll just come back.
All right, they know that, and they use that to their advantage. They're trying to, I guess, kill and capture him. Mm-hmm. So I think the bit about Resurrection Man trying to find out about his past moves kind of slowly, but since he is sort of this amnesiac character, you need something like that, or else there won't be much context for the story.
Yeah.
So it moves slowly. I didn't find it particularly engaging, but I didn't think it was bad. I think that...
It was just slower.
Yeah, it was slower, but I think that was necessary. Body doubles, getting involved... It's odd because there's this whole question, women in comics, this, that. You get the body doubles, just 2 sexy ladies who are
kill people.
Clearly, in it for the killing people. Fight scene, I think, works pretty well. It's not terribly action-heavy. It's, I think, a lot more background and character-heavy. Not so much character. Well, the character of Resurrection Man,
yeah.
So overall...
And you get to see that, Resurrection Man isn't, an experienced fighter. So you get to see that even though he has this great power, he's not quite sure. And because it keeps on changing, he can't really get used to one power for too long, so we see that.
But
how he fights.
Yeah, but I think it builds up to the next issue very well.
Mhm.
If number 2 were like the first one that I read, if I had missed number 1 and I was just reading number 2, I probably would say, well, this is alright, but I don't really want to read this series. When you combine number 1 and number 2 together,
It becomes...
I don't think that number 2 is getting worse. I think number 2 is what it has to be in terms of pacing and background.
Yeah.
But when you put them together, it does make me want to read number 3. So...
Me too.
Yeah. Maybe if I knew how number 2 was before I read it, I would wait until number 3 came out, see how that was, and then see if I wanted to read both of them. But again, I expect it would probably end up going very well. I think it ends strong, even if it's a bit slow. And I think that's all for...
Well, no, we have one more. At least one more.
Actually, I don't think that we do. Actually, I think that we do. Green Lantern!
Yeah?
Green Lantern!
Number
2! Oh my fuck!
It was good.
Green Lantern, so far, from everything I've read, from the first, 3 weeks of issue 2s, because we've read the following week as well, Green Lantern is, so far, the MVP of this relaunch. I mean, I haven't read Aquaman number 2, which is probably the other candidate, but, oh my, Green Lantern. Alright, everything I liked about Green Lantern number 1, still going,
and was better.
And now we get this fantastic dynamic
between
of Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, or not Green Lantern, and the other Green Lantern, Sinestro. Sinestro and Hal Jordan essentially having this really big, intense, bitter type rivalry thing going out through the entire issue. That's pretty much what it is. The two of them arguing with each other. But done so well because you have Hal Jordan is not a Green Lantern right now, but he needs to be a Green Lantern.
Because his life sucks.
Sinestro has created a Green Lantern ring and has the power to make him a Green Lantern, but Sinestro needs to save Korugar from the Sinestro Corps and needs Hal Jordan's help. So Hal Jordan has the choice...
You're speaking so loud you're beginning to echo.
Hal Jordan has the choice of either going along with Sinestro and helping Sinestro...
and becoming a Green Lantern again.
To become a Green Lantern again, or not doing so and living the life that we've seen in number 1 that he cannot live.
Yeah. Because he's a loser.
The drama there is fantastic. The way that the characters interact, characters really well defined. You've got Hal Jordan, and Sinestro is... What I love about Sinestro, my favorite thing about this comic, is that arguably I would say Sinestro... We think of him as like he's evil and whatever, so he shouldn't be a Green Lantern.
But he's competent.
He's not just competent. He is quite possibly like the best Green Lantern ever.
He fixes a bridge.
Don't tell them that part, because that, I think, comes... Toward the end, I was really pleasantly surprised by
Let's just say he does something really big, really quickly and easily.
Let's just say, in some ways, especially in the use of his mind to solve problems, he's more effective than Hal Jordan. It's not that Sinestro is a bad Green Lantern. He's just a good Green Lantern who happens to be a fascist.
Yeah.
And
well, he's good at using his powers because like Green Lantern has that whole code of honor thing or whatever. Like they have to be good, but like he's effective as a Green Lantern, but he's evil.
Yeah. Or is he evil? That's the thing about Sinestro. He's never been so much evil as he has been
a fascist.
A fascist. I mean, I think there's a difference between being evil, like I want to kill everyone, and I think being Sinestro, where he seriously believes that fascism is a proper thing for his planet and for his homeworld, which is what he really cares about. And I think we see that. So you've got this great villain story going on. Hal Jordan's struggle you could very well identify with. I'm not going to say Sinestro is the complete hero of this. I mean, he is still a villain, and it is still very consistent.
Sinestro's kind of like I don't want to say he's a jerk jock, because that like also connotates that he's stupid, which Sinestro isn't.
And that he's a jock.
Yeah, but...
He's a nerd.
Yeah, no, but like he's a jock in the Green Lantern, because the nerdier you are, the more creative you are, the more power you have as a Green Lantern. So he's kind of like just like the big guy on campus, but so like he's an asshole, but he is like talented.
I don't really think that comparison works for me, but
it's not a good comparison.
But overall, again, I would definitely recommend Green Lantern number 2. If you read Green Lantern number 1 and you liked it, there is no reason to... What?
He's the Gary Oak. He's like, Gary is like good at raising Pokemon, but he's a jerk, and Sinestro is good at using the Green Lantern ring, but he's a jerk.
Yeah. Gary's not a fascist, though.
He's not old enough.
Or is he? Well, you don't need... If you look at Hitler Youth, you don't need to be that old to be a fascist.
Yeah.
Anyway, overall, I would say...
Well, the Pope is a Hitler Youth. Is the Pope a fascist? Are you willing to say that to the internet?
I will say that perhaps the Pope at one point was a fascist.
Okay.
We should just end with that. But anyway, I would say if you read Green Lantern #1 and you liked it, if you liked it a lot, if you liked it a little, I would definitely recommend #2. If you didn't like #1, then I would disagree with you, but then maybe you wouldn't want to read #2. I don't know.
And,
Anyway, I think that we are done with this, so should we be leaving now? Somehow this ended up getting to be a very long video, even though
yeah.
I think we might have gotten into a little bit too much detail about a few of these.
So we still have this week's,
which we will be getting to in our next video. So,
yeah.
Ta-ta. And again, sorry for taking so long with both this video and the amount of time getting this video out.